Hello and welcome to another Cass Q&A video. Today we're going to be doing some makeovers for our side household sims while I answer questions that I received from the community but that I didn't get a chance to answer in my last Q&A video. I'll be showing the names of the sims that we're giving makeovers to on screen. I won't be talking so much about my process as I'd like to concentrate on the questions this time. So the first question I have is, have you ever killed a sim because you disliked them? And the answer is no, I have not. However, I have killed a sim because they were just too darn ugly. And that is actually one of my townies who, I don't know if you guys remember her, but when Romarin was a child, he and Khalil had two friends who were sisters, and they had names that I could not pronounce. And when they aged up to teens, one of the two girls was so ugly, and I was so afraid that Romarin or Khalil would become soulmates with them that I decided to have her drown. Rest in peace. I'm sorry. I just couldn't risk it. I didn't want your genes in my in our family's gene pool. Next question. Of all the main Barrow siblings, including the deceased, who is your personal favorite and least favorite? So I did answer this in the last video, but in case you missed it, my favorite at the moment is Esther because of the character development that she's had. She has always been a bit more proper, and she's always dreamt of something bigger than the peasant lifestyle that she was born into. And then through various events in her life, she did end up actually meeting the king and getting a request personally from the king to go and help one of the monasteries build a herb garden and train the monks and the nuns in medicine. So Esther, I feel, is the one out of all of the 9 Barrow siblings. I think she's the one who's had the most evolution. She's the one who's actually gone through the most adventures, while everybody else has been sort of static. And then my least favorite, of course, remains poor Frederick. I'm sorry, but he's just too darn boring. He had more potential, but I didn't exploit it as much as I should have. If Gemma hadn't failed her birth rule, where do you think she would be in the story now, and how would her presence impact the current characters? Okay, so OG Gemma, my favorite sim, who died giving birth to her second son, well, who survived, Ghyslain Verviers. I believe Gemma may have gone on to have several more children with Lucan, and today I think she would be pulling strings and trying to get all of her children married and situated in influential families. I think she would be especially excited about having girls, so she had 2 boys, but if she had also had girls, I think that's what would have excited her the most. And I think she would have loved trying to find them husbands and charming her own way into court and society and trying to find spots for her girls and also trying to find influential young ladies for her sons and her grandsons, because now her grandchildren are teens now, so she would probably be very busy trying to get them ahead as well. And I also could definitely see her trying to even perhaps seduce the king if she had an opportunity, and that's something I think Lucan would actually have supported her in doing. Even though they were soulmates, I think Lucan would have been very supportive of her ambitions, and if she had to seduce the king to help them get ahead, I think he would have been down with that plan. I know it's been like years and years since she died, but I will never get over her. I just won't. She's going to have to get reincarnated at some point so that I'll finally shut up about her. When Octavian's gender is eventually revealed, are you going to keep their name as is or change it to Octavia? So that is actually going to depend on where the story takes Octavian and her relationship to her gender. I'm going to have to interpret that based on whatever she does or what she looks like or how she presents herself. I don't really know in advance how she's going to feel about the whole secret, and also the circumstances in which her gender will be revealed. If it's eventually revealed, it might never be revealed. I do wish there was a way that I could create a secret in-game to give Sims a chance of autonomously figuring it out, especially with Illuminata and Yin Xiao at the jail, who would be very interested in learning that secret. Like, I wish I could have some in-game way of determining if it does come out or not. And then I guess another possibility would just be to roll for it, like, I don't know, every year or something. I could roll a die, and if it has a bad number, then the secret comes out or something. I don't know. I haven't really thought about what would happen if it came out. Since The Sims gave us the option to reincarnate a sim after death, who would you want to come back through this method? Anyone who's already passed or could potentially go next. So Gemma, of course, eternally my favorite. However, I feel like having her reincarnated might actually break the sort of legacy that she's left. And so as much as I would like to have her love story with Lucan be reincarnated into new Sims, I also feel like I should be letting her go. And another Sim I might be interested in seeing come back would be Adriana, Brayden, who, you know, has cheated destiny several times, but it is going to run out eventually. And I'm trying to think of anybody else, but I don't think so. I think those are pretty much the ones I would be most excited to see come back. Lucan would be a fun one because he's evil. And if Khalil eventually dies, he would be another fun Sim to have reincarnated. Who is your favorite side household? So I have to say my favorite is probably the jail. They're the ones who usually get up to the most mischief while I'm there. And I also really love the side story that we have with Octavian, and now there's Illuminata, who's evil, who might come as a sort of foil. And I'm also curious to see what is going to happen with her sisters. So that's the side household I currently have the most fun with. But I'm also very excited about Esther's children because I feel like Roland can be a real troublemaker. And I'm curious to see how he's going to figure out a way to get a title or to get knighted somehow. You know, you can just tell that Roland is ambitious and he's going to find a way to get in with the rich crowd by any means he can. What are your plans for the Black Plague and any future war raids? So for the Black Plague, I think I've mentioned this before, my plan is to have a stream. So when we make it to 1347, I am going to be making a family tree overview video to remind everyone of where we are with everybody's story. Then in 1348, I will be live streaming as I go around all of the households and I will be doing the rolls live, and then we will be having votes to see who gets saved. So my plan at the moment is not to have any pleads or to maybe limit my pleads. So maybe I'll only plead for 5 Sims or something, just so that I don't get tempted to plead for everyone and save too many Sims. And then I'll be putting the power in your hands to save several Sims. So I'm thinking on each platform. So during the live stream, there will be 1 vote. Then on YouTube, I'll post a poll where you can choose a Sim to save. And then probably on Patreon, I will also have another poll. So you guys are actually going to get to save 3 Sims. And I think I'll keep 1 final save for myself as the watcher. And then I will be doing a save file reboot. I'm going to port everybody from the old save file to a new save file to try and reduce lag. I'm going to get rid of a bunch of mods, a bunch of CC, just to try and make everything a bit more smooth, and also to make sure I don't have any really old bugs follow me, since I have been playing with the save file for several years now, and there have been several new expansions and several updates, and you just know something in there is broken, you know, the bicycle thing and missing legs and all that. So we are going to be moving to a new save file after the Black Plague. And as for the war raids, I don't have any specific plans apart from just the roles that I already did the last time. The next phase of the war happens at the same time as the plague, so what I'm planning to do is have the Black Plague rolls, and then we're going to go in game and do all of the deaths and stuff, and then right after the plague, then I'm going to start the next phase there. they might have a different sort of drama going. In the first phase, I had the whole winter thing. And so, I don't know, in the second phase, it might be the Black Plague that's going to make things different. Maybe there will be an extra role for Sims who are there. I haven't really thought of it. I admit, all of my plans sort of end at the Black Plague because I'm so unsure of who is going to live. I don't want to make plans and then have everything come to nothing because the Sims that I was planning to put in my story all died. So I'm not currently making any plans for war raids except the roles that I already built. Are you looking forward to making it to the 1400s? Yes and no. I am really excited for the post-plague years, but that's going to be the second half of the century. So in the next century, I haven't even looked at the rules yet, and so I'm a little bit nervous about that. And the Black Plague is such a big event, I am a little bit nervous that everything that comes after just will never be better than the Black Plague, you know? There's no event as big as the Black Plague that is going to be coming. And yes, we're going to be going to the New World eventually. There are plenty of things that are going to happen, but the Black Plague just feels like such a mountain of an event, you know? So the 1400s, I am excited about continuing the war. I would like to have a War of the Roses sort of scenario that I'd like to build. I'll have to see who's alive by then. And that's really what's going to drive my plans for the 1400s. So I am excited about it because it's a whole new century. The rules are going to change a little bit. I'd like to have aesthetics change a little bit along with the years. We're going to be going into more of a Tudor style at the end of the 1400s, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's going to be exciting. But the thing that doesn't excite me is that I feel like we have a lot of events now, and I just hope we're not going to fall into a slump after the plague and the 100 Years' War and everything are over. Next question. I heard the last expansion pack the Sims team will release is going to be medieval themed. Will you download it or keep things as is with CC? Well, this question came a little while ago, as you can tell. I did get the new DLC. I wasn't planning to, but I couldn't help myself. It's unfortunate. I have moral reasons that I probably should not have bought it, but I was unable to control myself, sadly. And so, as much as I love CC, there is something that I enjoy about having things be within the game and not having to manage CC and mods as much. So, I mean, the game is usually more broken than mods are, but anyways. If they released another pack, I don't know if I would get it. It would really depend on the theme, but I'm not sure my impulse control would be strong enough to stop me from getting the pack. I have literally bought every pack, and I promised myself I would only get them on sale, and I did not wait. So that's on me. What are some rules about the challenge you wish to improve? Well, the death rolls are something from the original challenge are something that I didn't agree with and that I did change, so my birth rolls are different. I would like more events, but my current episodes are already quite busy. I think it's because it's all leading up to the Black Plague, but once the plague is over, I think I would really like to see more events happening. But at the same time, I guess it is nice not to have whiplash from too many things happening. And then I also have ideas of things that I would like personally our Sims to do, like big events that I would like to organize, but that I'm kind of waiting for a good opportunity for, just like the festival that we did. I have not done festivals very often because it takes time to organize, and I usually have stuff planned out for every episode, several episodes in advance, like maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and then I finally get to an episode where I'm like, okay, now it's freedom, I can do whatever, and then I have to plan several episodes in advance because there are just so many households and roles to do and people to get married. So I'm kind of looking forward to after the plague. I think that would be a time when I would like to have more events suggested by the rules that I could have my Sims attend, instead of always just switching from one household to another and do roles and that's it, we're done. You know, I would like to have a few more events. What were the best and worst years in the challenge so far? So in my opinion, the worst years, or at least the most boring ones, were the ones just before the Great Famine. And I feel like things after the famine really picked up because then there was a little more drama with Sims having died. We had the orphans, Brayden came of age and became our main heir. And that's when things really got more exciting. So the best years, I feel, is when Gen 2 started becoming teens, and then we had a lot of Sims with different stories that we had to get settled. And then we had Gen 3 who also became teens, and there was the war. So those are like my favorite periods of time. It's when we can actually have events like those and have Sims carry out a story together and look for spouses, and those are the periods that I really enjoy the most. And so I have a feeling the post-plague years might become that, because we're going to be figuring out which Sims to get remarried, since a lot of them are going to be losing their spouses. And then there's also going to be the war, and then Sims are also still aging, so we're going to get another wave of teens. So those years should be quite exciting. Is Ghyslain going to work as the middleman between Auguste and Therese when it comes to taking care of Aldred? Because Ghyslain. I should really go for the French pronunciation of that name, because Ghyslain was there when Aldred was born. So yes and no. If Ghyslain did it personally, it might actually lead back to Auguste, because to everybody else's eyes, Ghyslain has no reason to be interested in that child. The only good coincidence is that he made himself responsible to bring Jordan and Piers to Brayden, and so we could say that he regularly goes to visit them to look in on them, and then while he's there, he also sort of looks in on Aldred, which Brayden shouldn't know about in theory, but I think Ghyslain is going to slip up at some point. I think he's the person who's least likely to keep a secret, and I do feel like Ghyslain is going to tell them either by accident or out of honor. I think he is going to tell Romarin and the whole family at some point. But I do think it would look a little bit strange if Ghyslain was keeping tabs on him. So I think he might actually go through a middleman who might be Hannah, Noah's daughter. She has been hired on at the Verveer's house, and so he might send her to go look in on Piers and Jordan, and while she's there, she can talk to her family, and while she's there, also get a bit of information on Aldred and bring that to Auguste. And then, of course, Honora in Auguste's household would probably try to eavesdrop a little bit and try to figure out why Aldred is being mentioned. You know, she has doubts, but she has no proof. How often do you plan on incorporating the royal family, and how important will they be to the overall story? Well, this is a thing that brings me back to the plague again, because I'm reluctant to start a storyline that might end suddenly because people die. So my plan with the royal family is to have them interact mostly with our noble Sims. So those are the Verveers and Esther and her children. And so I'm really hoping that they survive, because I want to send the children over to court. And that's where they're going to be looking for marriage partners. And that's where we're going to see more of the royal family. And we do know that the king likes poor people. One of his turn-ons is Sims who are broke. And so I feel like he might like Esther, or if we have one of our family members go there as a servant, that would be another little drama that we could stir up. So really it depends on who survives in the Black Plague, but I am thinking about sparing the royal family from the Black Plague. Not that historically there weren't royals who died from it, but just because I don't want to have to get a new royal family since we only saw them once. So I would like to keep going with that family and just say that they managed to make it out of town for the Black Plague and were miraculously okay. How are you gonna work Esther's terminal illness in? And did I roll to see when it will take effect? Well, it's actually a trait that I added in. It's very, very subtle. I have been hesitating to perhaps add a number to her future birthday rolls. I don't want it to be a big thing. I do think she, as a apothecary / herbalist, she may be self-medicating with something, and that might be helping her. So I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I think for now I've just let it, I let the trait manage it, but it's possible with her next birthday roll, I will be adding in some numbers to take that into account. What is your canon explanation for Gemma's appearance? Magic. That's it. It's magic. It's resurrection magic making things wonky. I'm currently working on a wheel for witchy trades of what might happen when you bring a sim back, and there are a lot of wonky things that I'm adding in there that the sim who comes back doesn't come back quite as intended. So I feel like that's one of the things that could accidentally happen, is that the sim just doesn't come back quite the way they looked like before, and it's just like a fun result of the resurrection without actually being troublesome. But there are a lot of troublesome results to resurrection that I'm adding into this wheel. I'm looking forward to using it, and I hope I get to use it more than once. And the last question that we have, how do you rank all of your sims in a social or financial hierarchy? That includes the maid bakers and Frederick Jr.'s families. I see this as being several categories. So we've got the noblemen, we've got the tradespeople, and then we have our peasants, and then we've got some unranked situations that sort of go in between. So at the top of the pyramid, we've got Esther. Her children have been brought up in the best luxury. Their father was a baron, and even though they're not technically going to inherit anything, they might actually inherit land or money through their grandmother, just not the baron title or the barony. But they're still going to be pretty high up there. And then after them, we have Ghyslain and Auguste. So Ghyslain is higher because he has the reverse title. Auguste is a knight, but he doesn't have the land. He has his wife's fortune, and they bought an estate, but he doesn't have as much land as his brother Ghyslain does. Ghyslain, on the other hand, has less money because his father spent most of it, but he has more land and a better income. And then we have our tradespeople. So the top of our tradespeople, I would put Alexander. I think he has the most profitable trade, and his family, well, his wife's family, is quite rich and quite respected, and they do mingle with noble people. After Alexander, I would put Noah. Noah, as an innkeeper, probably has a lot of influence on the community and probably a lot of income. And then I would put the Townsends, so that's Stephanie's family, and they're quite respected for their craftsmanship. I did forget to mention the Stafford family with Khalil because they're quite new, so I didn't think to include them, but I would probably put the Stafford family right after Alexander because they also do business with noblemen, and so they would have sort of an open to try and get their children married, perhaps into a higher rank. So I would probably put Khalil sort of under Alexander, but he's not quite there yet because he's not like a master. He finished his apprenticeship, but he doesn't have his own workshop yet. He's like a journeyman, and at the moment he is going to be working under someone else, at least until he produces a masterpiece and then can join a guild. But joining the guild is costly, and so his best bet would be to stay at his master's workshop until he manages to make his masterpiece, and then when his master passes away, well, hopefully he would inherit the shop as a master in his own right. But is that what Khalil wants to do? Khalil does have powers, and so perhaps he's going to manage to do something outside the regular way of doing things, so I don't know. So he's tentatively under Alexander. After the Townsends, I would put the bakers, who of course have the bakery, but they're not particularly rich. They don't really mingle with the upper class. They're just bakers. And then I'm not really sure where to put Zane because he's not a tradesperson exactly, but he's not really a peasant either. He's like a mercenary, or he's part of the free company that is in charge of security around Windenburg. So I'm not really sure where he fits in because he's quite renowned, especially after his efforts in the war. He has a reputation with the upper class, but he doesn't himself mingle with the upper class. But he's also not like farmer material. He's not in that rank either. So I'm not quite sure where to put Zane, but I guess I would put him between tradespeople and peasants. And then at the top of the peasants, I would put Brayden, of course. Brayden is the one with the most land, and he's the one with the most revenue thanks to making nectar, and he's managed to make friends in higher places, such as Quentin de Lacy, and of course he himself has sold nectar to the Lord of Windenburg. And so Brayden is the top of the peasants, and that's why I think starting with Romarin, we might actually be stepping into tradespeople territory, with Romarin having done his apprenticeship. Now it's up to him to open a little business and see how that goes. And then if his children also manage to do an apprenticeship, I would consider us able to leave the farm to one of our secondary children and possibly move into the city and play more as a business than a farm. But we'll see how things turn out, especially with the Black Plague. We might get a few obstacles along the way that are going to make our evolution take a little more time, I should say. After Brayden, I would put Frederick Jr. His wife was a widow who had quite a bit of land to her name, and Frederick Jr. just sort of got that through her, so I think his family is fairly well known. They have a fairly large amount of land, and ironically, even though Brayden wasn't super excited about Therese getting married to Romarin, if something happened to Frederick's family and Therese somehow inherited the land from her mother, it would actually be pretty good for Brayden because he would have even more land. And that would be great for their family, actually, especially for second daughters and sons who could then manage those lands. After Frederick, I would put Allison at the dairy farm. She sort of has a specialty, but it's not a very big farm. She's just okay. Then I would put Kaylin, who is basically managing Brayden's farm, because the farm is still in Brayden's name, even though Brayden moved away. So Kaylin doesn't technically own anything. It's all Brayden's, and he's just sort of the caretaker of it. So when Brayden dies, it's possible he would leave that farm to Kaylin, but he could also just leave it to one of his sons or even his daughters, perhaps. Actually, when Brayden dies, I think he's leaving everything to Fatima, now that I think of it. Fatima is going to be... I feel like he trusts Fatima to manage everything, and for her to then decide which children the land goes to. So I don't know. I don't know if Fatima is going to be leaving that farm to Kaylin or if she might keep it for her children. It's a good question. I'm not sure. So Kaylin doesn't really have much to his name, and he's just sort of working the land, and he's there, but he doesn't really have any options for himself. He also doesn't have any sons, so he's going to be paying lots of dowries for all of those girls. And then at the bottom of the peasants, I would put Gabriella, because she is just sort of living in the woods. She doesn't really have a farm. She just has this cabin that they built. And her children are sort of in the same situation where they're marrying into other farmer families, but nobody is very, they're not very important families. And I did forget to mention some of our secondary families. So like offshoots of Stephanie's line, such as the Fishers. They're fishermen, so I wouldn't put them very high up the hierarchy either. And then the ones that we have left are Lucia and Endrio. They're sort of not really peasants, but they sort of are. Lucia is a rose. She has a brothel, but then again, she doesn't own that brothel. And so, except being a rose, she doesn't really have anything to her name. And same for Endrio. He's a sailor, but he doesn't own anything. He doesn't really have a permanent home. And so I would put them at the bottom because they're the ones with the least security. They don't really have anything to fall back on if they get sick or if they can't work anymore. Well, they're fucked. So that is it for the extra questions that I had. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video, and I will be seeing you all in the next episode.